the establishment with their warm weasel waffly words basically to get on top of the British people, and we've got to turn that around.
You're a good man. Thank you so much for coming in. The legend that is Russia Ties, Deputy Leader of Reform, the party that are actually talking Trump-esque stuff in the United Kingdom. Not far right, common sense. Thank you for watching Drive Time. We continue here on Talk. Kevin O'Sullivan here with his Asylum. 0344 499 1000 is his telephone number. You can text 87222. Start your message with the word Talk. Petri is at 10. Thank you to the team today. Great job. Thank you for watching, listening, or whatever. I'll see you tomorrow from 4. I'm going home because I live there. Ta-ra.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk all the way to 10 o'clock. This is my inauguration special and we are going live to Washington to bring you the high drama of the changing of the guard as America bids farewell to 4 long years of Biden's weakness and wokery and welcomes in the new broom of a Trump administration that looks set to not only change the United States but also the entire world. For anyone who is sick to death of all the left-wing nonsense, who is fed up being told lies about 107 genders when everyone knows there are only 2, who has had enough of being charged a fortune for the expensive lunacy of the net zero fantasy just so that virtue-signalling politicians can polish their halos, who is at the end of their tether with the hectoring metropolitan liberal elite. Trump's inspirational speech was music to the ears. Did Donald do it for you? 0344 499 1000. I'll bring you all the fun of the fair as the party atmosphere grips DC and the United States, but leaves Britain in the cold. Invited to the party: Nigel Farage, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Suella Braverman, and even Talk's very own Alex Phillips will join us in just a moment. Not invited: Keir Starmer, his entire cabinet, Britain's new socialist ambassador in Washington, Lord Peter Mandelson, who may still be rejected by a president who has utter contempt for him. Should Donald say no to the not very diplomatic mandate? Gandhi, who called him a white supremacist. 03444991000. I want your thoughts. Since virtually the entire Labour front bench has insulted Trump in one way or another, is there a special relationship between the UK and the States? After he dismissed Donald as a neo-Nazi, how can Foreign Secretary David Lammy ever build a meaningful friendship with our closest but now suspicious ally? 03444991000. In other news, after the unexpected guilty pleas by Southport killer Axel Rudakabana to all 16 charges against him, including the murder of 3 little kids, the attempted murder of 10 more people, and possessing ricin poison and an Al-Qaeda training manual, a truly shocking revelation. That Rudakabana, now 18, the son of Rwandan immigrants, was 3 times referred to the government's counter-extremism scheme PREVENT, but some genius decided that his stated desire to murderously massacre children was not in any way related to terrorism. Eh? I would say that whoever came to the conclusion that this monster was not a terrorist and not a terrorist threat is a dangerous fool. What do you think? 03444991000. Also tonight, Rachel from Accounts is headed for the World Economic Forum in Davos, where no one wants to know her after her 40 billion tax grab, her 40 billion pound tax grab, business killing budget from hell. The Chancellor of Doom hasn't even been given a main speaking slot. 03444991000. And finally, another woeful week for Meghan and Harry, dismissed on the front page of America's Bible magazine, Vanity Fair, as, and I quote, American hustlers. For the latest in the Duke and Duchess's downhill slide, I'll go live to the West Coast to get the story from our correspondent there, Kinsey Schofield. Here is the big question. Was the gruesome twosome's disaster tourism trip to fire-ravaged LA for a photo op spot of grief grifting the final straw? Is that when Americans and indeed Brits decided enough of these two? 03444991000. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Monday night together. For the first time, I'm going to be with Talk's political and social commentator and my co-presenter, of course, Russell Quirk. Thanks, Russ.
Evening, mate. How you doing? Lots to talk about.
I'm good. Well, look, before we go to America, we're going to play some of Donald Trump's absolutely inspirational inauguration speech. He made a good speech at a rally in Washington last night. The one today was even better, ringing the changes, just saying no more of the nonsense that infuriates good, decent Americans. No more of that woke claptrap that we in Britain still have to put up with. So we'll play a bit of that in a minute. But massive story back here, Russell, before we divert our attention to all things America. That Axel Rudakabana, the 18-year-old Southport killer suspect, no longer a suspect, he is now the killer. Unexpectedly, what they thought would be a 3 to 6 weeks trial, he was going to plead not guilty to all the charges against him, all 16, 3 murders, 10 attempted murders, possession of ricin and possession of an Al-Qaeda training manual. He has unexpectedly pleaded guilty to all of them. So no more speculation. That guy is officially a little monster, a fiend who killed poor little kids at a dance class, a Taylor Swift dance class in Southport, who tried to kill 8 more kids, more school teachers as well, and in something that most of us might sort of think was slightly terrorist. There he is, lovely looking guy, isn't he? Who could ever think wrong of this bloke? But he also had possession of an Al-Qaeda training manual and ricin poison. That for me says one thing, that says terrorism. However, here's the story. incredibly, The Guardian has revealed this today, it transpired that this kid, the son of Rwandan immigrants who lived in Cardiff but they moved north to the Southport area, was 3 times referred to the government's counter-extremism scheme, Prevent, 3 times, but was rejected every time, despite his stated desire to murderously massacre school children. Someone, somewhere, in the Prevent scheme or in the authorities, in the government, decided that this kid, who was obsessed with killing, who was obsessed with the genocide in Rwanda, and stated that he wanted to kill school kids, he wanted to massacre school kids, someone in the British establishment decided that this kid was in no way a terrorist threat. Are you kidding me?
Well, yes, so again, it doesn't take much to join the dots, Kev, does it? In terms of joining those dots, you know, he was an Islam convert. He was clearly radicalised, it would seem, in possession of ricin, in possession of a manual that related to Al-Qaeda activity, and then went on to kill and attempt to kill multiple people with a bladed instrument. I mean, how that cannot be terrorism, goodness only knows. I'm going to venture, I'm afraid, that because of what happened when he was first caught for this, when the incident first happened, that perhaps now the authorities are trying to maintain that this was not terrorism, because of course there are currently certain people languishing in jail for speculating that it was terrorism and that it had an Islamic extremist angle, focus, and I guess now if the authorities were to admit that this of course is this does relate to terrorism, they would look rather silly for putting all those people in jail for suggesting and speculating that it is terrorism. So those people, of course, were right. And don't forget, you know, there was an individual, of course, who killed himself in prison, having been imprisoned for speculating on such things. So the talk about egg on your face, I mean, that's an understatement when it comes to the authorities here. And the audacity also, as we've seen in the last few minutes, I'm sure we talked about it already on Talk, I'm sure Jeremy was covering it, the fact that Yvette Cooper has said that there will now be an inquiry into this. Well, no inquiry into, you know, child rape, it seems, when it comes to the rape gangs, but an inquiry now into this. And it's quite surprising, because one would imagine that actually this inquiry might uncover some interesting stuff in terms of what Yvette Cooper and Keir Starmer knew at the time of this offence, when people were speculating on the fact that this was not a Welsh Christian choir boy, as I think the authorities tried to tell us.
The point is in the lead up to this, when no one knew who the hell they were, including, of course, Starmer and Cooper, they wouldn't have known, nor would the government. He was just some other suspicious kid who deserved to be watched by Prevent, perhaps deserved to be signed up to that scheme. At that point, somebody decided, this kid is going around saying, I'd love to kill lots of kids, school kids. That's what he was going around saying. Somebody decided that that was not a terrorist threat, and therefore he wasn't signed up to the Prevent scheme. Whoever decided that was a dangerous fool who needs to be hauled over the coals in no uncertain fashion. This is all plays into how the authorities never want to say that kids are terrorists, because it might look as if they're a bit racist or Islamophobic. This kid, I think, was a Christian, actually, by his family
originally
were Christians, I think.
Yeah.
I think his family were, but he decided otherwise, I think, it looks to me. But anyway, this kid has got the kid gloves treatment, from the authorities, who once again don't really want to talk about the truth. But
Kev, haven't the authorities got blood on their hands? It's not just irresponsible. It's not just that they let this slip.
Well, yeah.
They've got blood on their hands.
Yeah. And I don't. But I mean, as I say, this is before anybody would have known who it was. So this is You can't actually blame Starmer and Cooper for this, but someone somewhere has made a dreadful mistake. What we can blame Starmer and Cooper for is covering up the truth about this guy's terrorist connections when they knew full well about them within hours of his arrest after he killed those poor kids in Southport. They knew about it because his house was raided. They found the Al-Qaeda manual. They found the ricin poison. We weren't told about that I think, until something like October, months later, when they suddenly dropped in that he was charged. So we were kept in the dark. So let me know what you think about that. 0344 499 1000. Well, now let's go to the big story of the day. It is America. And let's go straight over. She's been enjoying all the fun of the fair. You can't talk to anyone better about parties than my next guest. She is, of course, the great Alex Phillips, my fellow talk presenter, my former co-host, Alex Phillips, over there in Washington. How you doing, Alex?
Oh my God, I am broken. I'm so tired, Kev. It's insane. I've never been in America during inauguration before. It's unbelievable. It's an absolute spectacle. The whole of DC is shut down. You can't get anywhere. All the roads are sort of jammed up or closed, military everywhere. You hear YMCA being like blasted out of everywhere. It's -5 degrees out there. It is absolutely perishing, but people are so happy, and there's just parties, endless parties from 9 in the morning till 4 in the morning. You know, you could just go to one after the other, big flamboyant affairs, champagne, lobster everywhere. It's amazing.
Yeah. And what's the I mean, I hate these kind of questions, but this is what you're here for, Alex. What is the atmosphere like there? Because I'm discerning. It's not just the normal change of a president. This is the changing of the guard. America is changing here. And maybe, just maybe, fingers crossed, Donald Trump is going to take the whole world with him. We are sick of wokery. We are sick of being lectured to about net zero. We are sick about the decline of law and order, of apologism to those who would do us harm. Something has changed in America, and I think it might change the entire world. Did you get that feeling?
I really, really do. I couldn't have put it better myself. It feels like the beginning of a new era, the dawn of a new day, not just in America, but probably the whole of the West, because a new political precedent has been set. He said in that amazing speech, didn't he? It's a riveting speech, and he delivered it so well. Drill, baby, drill. He said there's no more all of these genders. From now on, there's just 2 genders. He's talking about getting rid of the big state. He's talking about no more endless foreign wars and actually forging big peace deals. And it's so positive. It is, it's electric. You know, obviously I've been going to all the events where people are celebrating him, so I haven't really come across any sort of, never Trumpists or the, mad Democrats particularly. But there is something that's even sort of bigger and more spectacular this time around. And I think it's because, he was denied in 2020. People have had 4 years of an absolutely ineffective Biden government. America's been in a pretty bad state of affairs, really down and depressed. We know what that feels like with our absolutely dreadful management here in the UK, well, over there in the UK, as I'm in DC. They also are saying a lot at every single event I go to. This time around, he knows what he's doing. When he was president for the first time, he was brand new to politics, really, brand new to the job. Took him a while to understand who he could trust. This time, they've spent a long time with the transition, building up that team, making sure they know exactly what policies they're going to deliver. And you know what? 1 minute after he was sworn in as president, the migration app that people use down on the border, deleted, gone offline. TikTok, gone. He shut that down, although I think there's some negotiations to be had there. There's already border forces on the Mexico-American border right now, beginning to pick people up and deport people. He's just getting on with it. It's incredible.
And do you feel, I mean, the way I'm seeing this over in America, and I wish we could have it here, it's this. You watch Trump, right, and you think, do you know what he is delivering America from? He is delivering America from 4 years of these sanctimonious Democrats saying it's important, never mind what you think, it's trans rights, it's net zero. They're imposing their sort of affluent liberalism on people who can't afford it and who don't want to know about it. Unfortunately, it looks like we are still going to suffer from the same syndrome, but Trump just talks the language of the people, and you sort of think, well, why have we put up with this so long? Why have we put up with people like Biden and Harris and Starmer lecturing us about what is good for us as opposed to what we want as people? That's what's going on over there. Enough of all that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? We are going to have to follow suit because basically America, one of the things he said in the speech, other than drill, baby, drill, he's not going to do the net zero thing. So if he's not doing it, if China's not doing it, what is the point in us self-flagellating? We're just going to slip back woefully economically as if things couldn't be worse than they already are. But they can be. I'm pretty sure we're going to actually have to go to the IMF for a bailout. I genuinely believe that's on the cards. But he's talking about, petrol cars are going to stay in America. He wants to help the automotive industry. Well, there's going to be so much pressure now on Britain to do the same. If we're going to follow in lockstep, if we're not going to go into disastrous economic decline, and a lot of the mad woke stuff, which we're still infected with in the UK, and did you know we actually have more DEI officers, more diversity hires in the UK per capita than America? So we really adopted.
Doesn't surprise me somehow, but
that stuff kind of came from America in the first place, didn't it? And
Yes.
they've got rid of it now. So I think we're going to follow suit. I hope we are.
And what are you picking up in terms of Trump's people and their attitude towards Starmer, Mandelson and the gang? I mean, you cannot, Starmer's trying to play it down, but you cannot avoid the significance of the fact that you were invited, of course, Alex, but also Nigel Farage, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Suella Braverman, all on the guest list. Who's not on the guest list? Keir Starmer, his entire socialist cabinet, and Britain's new ambassador to Washington, Labour's old dinosaur, Lord Mandelson. You can't avoid the significance of that. He's sending some kind of message, isn't he?
Right. I mean, there have been rumours over here that Trump might actually block the appointment of Mandelson. So let's see, watch this space. I don't think he will, but there has been rumours. But what's shocking, I mean, look, it's not actually protocol that heads of state are invited to inauguration necessarily. But not a single Labour government minister has bothered to get on a plane and come over. Not one. Not one. They don't care. And that is the message that's being sent out. But one thing I've really picked up on since being over here in the States is how much they're worried for us. They really care about us, and they want now a project to save Britain. It's not just Elon Musk. I mean, we all know, looking at his posts on X, that he's very concerned about the situation. It is echoing throughout DC. Everyone I've been speaking to, they're coming up going like, oh my God, in your country, people are put in prison for social media posts. Oh my God, in your country, booming gangs. Oh my God, your economy. Oh my God, your mad communist prime minister. And they're worried. They're genuinely worried for us. And they keep asking the same thing, all of them. They keep saying to me, is there any way of getting rid of him? What can we do to help? Is there any way of getting rid of him? And it's astonishing. The Americans want us to be strong. They want to see a government in the United Kingdom that echoes and reflects what they've now got, that I'm so jealous of. And I think that actually the tide's going to turn. Nigel is adored over here, absolutely hero worshipped. And I think that, he's over here, no doubt, to try and raise funds to go into the Reform Party. And I don't think he's going to struggle to do it. And looking at the polling right now in the United Kingdom, I really had a sense over in America, the positive vibe here, the way Republicans are talking about us, the big change that's just happened in America, it's sort of setting, like I said, a precedent for us to follow suit. And I think our general election, albeit quite far away, I think it could really deliver similar results.
Listen, Alex, great to talk to you. I didn't mean to get in the way of your partying. So what next? What event are you off to now?
But you know what? I'm actually going to the airport and flying to New York, where it's going to be minus 10 degrees.
Oh my
I've
God.
got a thermal with me. But I'm probably going to meet a few more mad Dems over there, I reckon. But I'll keep my MAGA hat on. This is a proper one. Do you want me to bring one home for you?
Yes, definitely. 100%. 100%. Listen, Alex, great to talk to you. Have a wonderful time. Say hi to New York for me. The great Alex Phillips there, fellow talk presenter, obviously connected to Reform UK, giving us the latest on that atmosphere over in Washington. And it is one of freedom. The Americans feel like they're being released from 4 years of woke darkness, of liberal lecturing. Oh, net zero, you don't understand. We're doing things that are better, are good for the planet. They're above your pay grade. You just do as you're told. Well, enough. Trump is going to govern for the people and not for himself. So we look forward to that. We'll take a look at his inauguration speech and more events from across the pond after these messages.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On the app. On your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, let's talk about Trump's... well, listen, last night he had a rally, right? This is what he said at the rally last night. The curtain... I won't bother with the accent, although my impression is very good. The curtain closes on 4 long years of American decline, and we begin a brand new day of American strength and prosperity, dignity and pride. We're going to end the reign of a failed and corrupt political establishment in Washington, a failed administration. We're not going to take it anymore. We're going to stop the invasion of our borders. We're going to reclaim our wealth. We're going to unlock the liquid gold that's right under our feet. That means the end of net zero. That means oil. So he is currently, as we speak, already destroying Biden's awful legacy by signing as many as 200 executive presidential orders. Let's remind ourselves, so that was his rally speech last night. Today, at the inauguration, he made his initial speech to the nation, and by all accounts, it was pretty damned inspirational. Here's a few excerpts.
I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America. Never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents, something I know something about. We will not allow that to happen. It will not happen again. Under my leadership, we will restore fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law. Today, I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense. A short time from now, we are going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, and we will restore the name of a great president, William McKinley, to Mount McKinley, where it should be and where it belongs.
There you are. So pretty impressive stuff, I thought, Russell. Yeah. I mean, he is ringing the changes, and as I say, it feels like America is emerging from the darkness of this woke tyranny, this left-wing metropolitan liberal nonsense, into a period of sunshine.
There's a lot of common sense in what he's saying in terms of identity politics and virtue signalling, getting rid of all of that and reversing what he called America's decline over the last 4 years or so. He called it Liberation Day, which I thought was a great line, and he says, yeah, decline is now over. So I think that there's the political side in terms of all the identity stuff and so on. And obviously, you know, he said, the first thing he said was, you know, we are now immediately sending troops to the southern border. That now closes.
Yeah, they're already there, apparently.
As Alex said, yeah, we are deporting immediately. But on the trade point that you mentioned at the beginning, that was really interesting. So he effectively reeled off a shopping list of the stuff that he's going to do. So, for instance, ending the electric vehicle mandate, which we're subjected to, obviously different rules and regulations, same effect, that manufacturers have to build and sell a certain amount of electric vehicles, even if customers don't want to buy them. He said, we're not doing that anymore. He said, buying a car should be a matter of choice. Who on earth can argue with that? Ending the Green New Deal, as you said, that's the whole net zero thing in terms of ripping that up, becoming a manufacturing nation again, using oil and gas. He said,
drill, baby, drill.
Drill, baby, drill. And then he talked about, trade specifically, having a national approach, a nationalistic approach, with tariffs and taxes on other countries, rather than taxing American people. He set up a thing called the ERS, you know, the IRS. I mean, you remember from when you lived in the States, the Internal Revenue Service.
How can I forget?
Yeah, well, there's now an external revenue service which is going to collect all those tariffs. So he is not messing around. And as Alex rightly said, he has already hit the ground running on some of this stuff. He is going to be a president, particularly the second term now, that he's learned quite a lot from the first one. I think he's going to be a lot more grown up. He's going to execute. I suspect economically he will have the most successful presidency since Ronald Reagan.
Let's hope so. I mean, he's talked a good game. I hope he actually plays a good game. It sounds as if he has the resolve to do everything that he's promising. It's hard to get things done in the States. Executive orders don't necessarily mean you can do a damn thing, but he's got the wind in his sails, and he won't make the mistakes he did last time. He knows how to operate in Washington now. It's a difficult place. Last time he didn't know what he was doing. He was a neophyte, and they kicked him all over town. This time he knows what he's doing, and he knows how to navigate the twisted corridors of the American capital, and I think he'll make it work. So what do you think, folks? Do you think that Donald Trump may be a great thing for America, and indeed a great thing for the world? Haven't you had enough of that left-wing wokery that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris used to impose on reluctant Americans, that we are still having imposed on us? Nobody wants this crap that Keir and Yvette and all the gang try to impose on us, all this trans stuff and net zero. We just get on with it. As Donald Trump said, please, can't we just return to common sense? Do things sensibly, like we used to. Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. When we come back, we're going to talk to a reporter who's been at the various hearings involving the Southport killer, we can call him that now, Axel Rudakapana. What today's situation means. He pleaded guilty to all 16 charges at Liverpool Crown Court. I believe he will be sentenced on Thursday, but we'll get a taste of the atmosphere in that court, what it felt like, the shudder that went through the trial room, the courtroom, when he suddenly unexpectedly pleaded guilty to everything. That really was a shocker. So we'll just get an up-to-date picture of what happened today at Liverpool Crown Court, and what the future may hold for Mr. Rudakapana. That next. Stay where you are.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, we're going to talk now to a reporter who's been covering, of course, the Axel Ruda-Kapana case. He pleaded unexpectedly today guilty to all 16 charges. So that was expected to be a case that would last 3 to 6 weeks and that he would plead not guilty. But rather unexpectedly, he didn't. And everyone was rather shocked about that. Let's talk to someone who's been covering the case. She is Charlie Bentley Astor, writer and commentator. Hello, Charlie.
Hi, Gav.
Now, you predicted, you were revealed, in fact, on social media that you understood that, contrary to expectations, he would be pleading guilty to all of these charges. Now, obviously, it didn't surprise you, but it did surprise everybody else. I mean, there must have been something of an atmosphere of shock in the courtroom today.
Well, actually, it was a surprise to me, and it was a surprise to the families, and it seems to a lot of the legal team and police around the families this morning. I knew early, a couple of weeks ago, really, that the defence was not going to be presenting a defence. They were simply going to allow the prosecution to put their evidence forward and let it speak for itself, rather than, let's say, let Ruda-Kapana incriminate himself. By going into the dreadful detail of his motivations.
So, yeah, so, but a shock to everyone that he decided to admit it. But I'm assuming that would be on the same basis. I mean, if they weren't going to, as it were, enter any kind of case on behalf of Ruda-Kapana, did that entail pleading guilty, not maintaining any kind of innocence?
No. So, as I've been in communications with the family ever since this has happened, they were picked up early this morning and taken to a police station to go through some of the body cam footage of the attack and the aftermath of the attack ahead of the trial, so that they wouldn't be too distraught when they had to watch it again in the courtroom. Now, they wouldn't have subjected the families to that if that wasn't going to happen. The families were there watching, mid watching this body cam stuff, when a police officer came in, took all the solicitors away, and they were told that he was pleading guilty, and there was no time to get them to the courtroom before this had happened, which is why the families were not there today. So,
as of this morning, families were being shown some of the videos that were filmed there in preparation for them being having to endure them in court, on the assumption that he was going to fight a not guilty case. Is it your feeling, Charlie, or is it your understanding that this apparent change in the direction of travel has happened all of a sudden today, or maybe late yesterday? Is this a late kind of volte-face?
It seems that this has happened literally minutes before Ruda-Kapana was due to take to the stand. Now, the trial did start 45 minutes late. Well, there wasn't a trial, but proceedings started 45 minutes late. This might have something to do with it. But the families had a right to be there to see this man who attacked their children, murdered some of their children in the flesh, and to hear this plea entered. And they didn't get that opportunity because they could not get the families there fast enough. This was a snap decision, and we kind of need to know why this change in tax has happened. They've had weeks to prepare. This is strange.
It does seem very, very strange. Now, am I right that he will be sentenced, or it's scheduled for his sentencing on Thursday? Is that right?
Yep, Thursday, 11 o'clock at Liverpool Crown Court. We don't know what the sentencing will be yet. The judge indicated at proceedings today that he will receive a life sentence. Now, what that means for someone under the age of 21 is kind of up for debate, because it will rely a lot upon the judge's own position, as well as the additional evidence that is being presented in the court in the next 2 days, including a mental health file.
Okay, and I gather that throughout his various appearances, including today, that Rudy Cabana has been a kind of rather sort of reluctant figure, a bit sulky, hasn't really engaged with the proceedings, and in fact has kept a sort of mask on at all time. So is that the impression that's come across from him, that you know, he's not exactly cooperating with this legal process?
He's certainly not been cooperating. I think this is indicated by the judge saying at every instance, every hearing that they've had, that he should cooperate with the people that are there to help him. It seems there has been little of that. There's been little of communication with the police in his interviews. But I wouldn't say it's a kind of reluctance. I'd say it's almost an arrogance. It's not that he's had a mask on, it's that he's been struggling to put a mask on. There's a reason he has been hiding his face, and that is because he has been smirking behind his hand throughout these proceedings. I can't go into exactly why I know this, but I will be able to in a couple of days.
He's been smirking. He's smirking. I've heard it from other sources, Charlie, and
he's rather
so he thinks he's pleased with himself, and he thinks this is all quite amusing, does he?
Yeah, I mean, he was asked to stand. He's never given his name, but he was asked today to stand before the court, and he did not get up. Now, to me, that tells me he has contempt for the whole process, for the people prosecuting him, for the people trying to defend him, for the justice system itself, and most of all the families. The disrespect. He has utter contempt for what he's being forced through in his mind, I imagine. And yeah, no sympathy at all should be lived up towards this monster. I wonder how his attitude might change when he starts to serve what I imagine will be several life sentences. I wonder how his fellow prisoners might react to having them among him. I would say that his arrogant smirk may fairly soon be wiped off his face. I don't know if you knew about any of this, Charlie, last point, but it has emerged today since his guilty pleas. The Guardian newspaper, to its credit, had this ready, and they've revealed today that before anyone knew who Axel Rudy Cabana was, before his horrific killing of those kids and attempted killings of the other poor victims, that he was 3 times referred to the government's counter-extremism scheme, PREVENT, but was rejected on the basis that someone decided that his stated desire to massacre school kids, to massacre children, was not related to terrorism. Now, that does seem to be true. That is something of a scandal, is it not? It's so much worse than this. So it's not just PREVENT. I mean, I can reveal that I've yet to see documentation, but I've had it sort of confirmed by several different sources, including a police officer and several social workers. He was known to social services, was a Category 4, which is the highest level that a child can be. And he was demoted to a Category 3, not too far before the Southport stabbing, because, quote, there was not enough resources and they had 100 people on the waiting list. So, I mean, I've knew about this. I also had to sit on the fact that he had attempted to attack his school and was apprehended by police on the way to this attack, literally 1 week before. Now, unfortunately, you know, reporters like you and I have had to sit on this for weeks, if not months, because we were expecting this information to be included in the trial. So yeah, unfortunately, everyone got the head start on me because I hadn't written mine up yet.
But Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, today has announced a full public inquiry into these murders and the story behind them. So, you know, in fairness, we sort of thought that these guilty pleas might be quite handy for the establishment, for the government, who obviously have not handled Rudy Cabana's case very well. But to be fair, a public inquiry might be quite embarrassing for the authorities, but from what you're saying.
It could be extremely embarrassing. I think significant swathes of the front bench are going to have to go. Several senior figures within, you know, Merseyside and the councils and authorities there are going to have to go. There is no covering this up. I for one, am going to make sure of that. But it's this is not good news. These guilty pleas. It's good news for the families. They won't have to endure going through every single detail of how their children were murdered and mutilated. But this is incredibly fortuitous for the government, who can throw out a lot of details and go, well, that's everything. And unfortunately, a lot of people will go, oh, well, it must be then, because these are so horrific. But actually, I think it's going to be used as a guide to cover up the truly horrific details that would move people in this country.
Yeah, but a public inquiry is going to unearth the gory details, I think, I hope. And you're saying, from what you know, Charlie, I just want to take you back to what you just said, that you think that the failings are so disastrous here that certain front bench politicians may have to quit.
I mean, I think Starmer has to go, as do Yvette Cooper, taking to a national stage and calling great swathes of the country far right for having concerns about how this case was being handled. They felt they were being lied to. They knew they were being lied to. And people were put in jail, and some still are in jail. And of course, Peter Lynch is now dead for saying some rather inconvenient truths that were inflammatory. Yes, they were in contradiction of Communications Act. Yes, but they were said from a genuine anger that turns out to be utterly true in origin.
Yeah, there was they felt that there was a terrorist element to this. We were told, no, 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 you far-right troublemakers, you must stop spreading this misinformation. Well, essentially, it was not misinformation. The government, the Crown Prosecution Service, the local police told us it was misinformation to suggest there was anything to do with terrorism here. I think some serious questions are going to have to be answered here, Charlie. Charlie, we'll keep in touch. Really good to talk to you. Thank you very much. Charlie Bentley Astor there, writer and commentator who, as you can say, has been with this trial every step of the way. She says that when the truth comes out about the failings around Axel Rudikamana, she thinks that serious high members of the government, the front bench, will have to quit, and she includes Starmer among that. Well, extraordinary. 03444991000. When we come back, let's talk about Davos, the World Economic Forum, and Rachel from Accounts, who's headed there, but no one wants to know her this year. 03444991000. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's talk about Rachel Reeves. She's gone to Davos, where they have the World Economic Forum. Keir hasn't gone this year, but you remember this is his favourite place because hates democracy, but he loves it when world leaders and mysterious business leaders, tycoons, get together to make deals that have nothing to do with democracy, nothing to do with the people of the countries these world leaders represent. Remember this from Keir?
You have to choose now between Davos or Westminster.
Davos.
Why?
Because Westminster is too constrained, and it's closed, and we're not having meaning. Once you get out of Westminster, whether it's Davos or anywhere else, you actually engage with people that you can see working with in the future. Westminster is just a tribal shouting place.
Yeah, can't stand that democratic mother of all parliaments. Oh, let's go to Davos and talk to some tycoons who've arrived in their private jets to talk about clean air, no doubt. Here's the thing, though. This time last year, she was the hottest ticket in town in Davos, Rachel Reeves. I'm right for business under me. Britain will be open for business and all this. Well, now she hasn't even been given a main speaking slot. No one wants to know her because they all know that she's going on about, oh, the business is booming in Britain. No. They all know that her £40 billion tax grab budget killed business and it's just socialism at work, and they don't want to know her this year. Nobody wants to talk to her this year.
Just quickly, can I just say about what Keir Starmer said? I know that's a clip there that's been repeated. That's not just Keir Starmer being a globalist and turning his back on Britain and British democracy. That effectively you could interpret it in terms of what he said there about the future, meeting people that are people you can deal with and work with in the future. It's almost like he feels he's feathering his own commercial nest later, where all these politicians go off to become non-exec directors and board members and so on. Anyway, so Rachel Reeves. So Rachel Reeves has no credibility as a chancellor, economist or money person whatsoever. We now know that to our cost in Britain. The thing is, that has now filtered through to Davos. All of the entrepreneurs, the business leaders and indeed the political leaders know that she has no clue and no credibility. So therefore, they're not going to want to talk to her. They're not going to want to be associated with her, and that's why she hasn't got a speaking slot. The audacity, really, of Rachel Reeves, or maybe naivety, maybe it's arrogance, maybe it's incompetence, it's one or both of those, that she thinks that she can go to somewhere like Davos, having just rinsed Britain in the worst budget that we've ever had.
The worst budget.
Yes, by way of doing what she's done in terms of the £40 billion tax, as you reference. Half of that, by the way, on businesses by way of national insurance for employers. But it's the message it sends to businesses here and, of course, abroad. If you set your stall out as a government very, very quickly in your first 3 or 4 months in government, whereby you're saying that we are going to be high tax and high regulation, what that sends out as a message to those business people across the world and those those leaders of those countries is that we're effectively closed for business. So why would anyone want to sit there talking to Rachel Reeves about investing in this country when she's effectively turned the taps off? She's killed the country economically. It is hypocritical at best.
It's ludicrous. 2 people in the frame right now. Peter Mandelson, who Starmer has appointed as our ambassador in Washington, the most important diplomatic job that there is for Britain. Our oldest ally, America, of course, the special relationship. Well, Trump didn't even invite him to his inauguration. In the past, he's called Trump a white supremacist. Trump doesn't even want to know him. So Mandelson is going to be an also-ran. Yeah. Trump might decide he could actually veto Mandelson as a British ambassador, and he may well do that. He's also very worried about our Attorney General, a lefty called Lord Richard Hermer, who basically in any dispute decides that Britain is wrong. He's the one who, for no reason whatsoever, is desperate to negotiate a deal to give away the Chagos Island to China's friend Mauritius. They've given Donald Trump the right of veto on that. He'll make a decision on that tomorrow. He's going to say no, isn't he?
Well, but also they brought back Jonathan Powell, who used to be the chief of staff for Tony Blair and was also one of the architects of the Chagos deal. And they're going to put him in charge, apparently, of doing a trade deal with Donald Trump. Donald Trump, who doesn't want us to do that Chagos deal for obvious reasons, is going to look across the table at Jonathan Powell and say, well, what are you doing here? You know, you're not my politics, mate, so why on earth would I want to negotiate with you? So, again, Starmer showing, as ever, you know, huge misjudgment in terms of the people that are around him. So Rachel Reeves isn't going to get any deals. And Rachel Reeves also, Kev, I'm afraid, thinks that growth comes from the public sector. She thinks that growth comes from people investing here. I'll tell you where growth comes from. It comes from hard-working people that then become consumers and buy stuff, but particularly from businesses, entrepreneurs, wealth creators. This might be lost on Rachel Reeves, but small businesses, SMEs in Britain, employ 16 million people in this country. That is why we should cut taxes, and that will get things going.
Absolutely. Should Donald Trump veto Peter Mandelson, the Prince of Darkness, who's our new ambassador in Washington? The president has the right to say no. Should he say no to that old Machiavellian schemer, a man who's been in more trouble than most people in his checkered career?
The Prince of Darkness.
And should he get rid of Richard Hermer, or should he? Is he right to object to Richard Hermer, the left-wing Attorney General, who wants to give away the Chagos and thinks that Britain is automatically wrong in any given dispute that he's in? Because, of course, we're imperialists, aren't we? Let me know. 0344 499 1000. Back to Washington after the break for more on the inauguration. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Massive stories, of course, across in America, and here, America, of course, the inauguration that may will almost certainly change America, may well change the entire world. That's unfolding before our very eyes. They've already signed. Donald Trump is officially now the President of the United States. Joe Biden has gone off to the obscurity for which he was designed. So the Democrat darkness is over. The Republican sunshine has been cast on the United States of America, with Donald Trump pledging all sorts of fundamental changes. But in a little while, also, of course, here in Britain, we've got the Axel Ruder-Gabama case. Extraordinary events unfolding up in Liverpool as he pleaded guilty to 16 charges, killing 3 kids in Southport in the dance hall, trying to kill 10 more people, and possessing ricin and an Al-Qaeda training manual. At some point our authorities decided this guy was no terrorist threat. Really? That, folks, is what we call a scandal. 03444991000. But of course, there is another big story internationally unfolding in Gaza, and in a little while we'll go over to a guest to discuss the release of the hostages, what happens after the 33 hostages slated for release are let out as part of this ceasefire deal. What about the rest of the hostages? Can it survive? And also, I want to talk about Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell, who have both been interviewed under caution after allegedly breaking the terms of Saturday's pro-Palestinian hate march in central London and breaking off to go and pillory a local synagogue. So that was nice, wasn't it? They, of course, deny all wrongdoing. We will talk about that in just a little while. But first, let's go back to Washington. We're hoping to get hold of Greg Swenson as soon as we can. He's over there amid the pomp and ceremony there. So I think I can see him there. So can we go over to Washington now? OK, there he is. He's from the Republican Overseas Organization, enjoying all the fun of the fair in happy, snappy Washington. He is, of course, our friend Greg Swenson. Welcome, Greg.
Great to see you, Kevin.
Now, you've been enjoying the events of today. Well, tell us, I mean, the speech I thought was pretty inspirational. Let's just, before we get your thoughts, let's play 2 of the sections of this speech that I think summed up what it was all about. It basically was an end to Democrat metropolitan elite liberalism, an end to wokery, a return to common sense. Here's Donald Trump on the fact that there are not 107 different genders. Take it away, Donald.
I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only 2 genders, male and female.
You think, well, why is that a big deal? There are only 2 genders, but when a president says there are only 2 genders, everybody goes, yeah, fantastic. Before we get your thoughts, this is the other bit I loved, Greg. Drill, baby, drill. Take it away, Donald, again.
Today, I will also declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill. We will be a rich nation again, and it is that liquid gold under our feet that will help to do it. With my actions today, we will end the Green New Deal, and we will revoke the electric vehicle mandate industry, and keeping my sacred pledge to our great American auto workers.
Well, Greg, I mean, you get the gist. Also, he said he pledged a return to free speech. You can say what you like when he's in power. Common sense, the planting of the American flag on Mars. Other additional plans he has to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, to maybe second the Panama Canal, maybe even take over Greenland. And while he's at it, I think more and more people in Britain say, could you take over Britain as well? I mean, you know, this is a return to normality, isn't it? A return to common sense that Americans have been yearning for under the darkness of Biden and Harris's bizarre, ridiculous wokery.
Yeah, it was very refreshing, I thought. I mean, it was a balance of healthy optimism, which is great to see. And there's so much optimism in Washington right now, Kevin. And then you had the criticisms of Biden and Harris, and that wasn't delicate. You know, he didn't mention them by name, but he didn't have to. And I just caught in the background here at the Milken Institute, I'm across the street from the White House, Joe Biden's parting words before he got on Air Force One, "Thank God for the last time."
Is that what he said? I think, yeah, I think that's what we all think. But yeah, we share his emotions there, don't we? Thank God he won't be in charge anymore. Now, Trump's talked about signing 200 executive orders. We're hearing already that troops are massing on the southern border and starting to stop people coming in for the first time in 4 years. So it does seem as if he wants to get going straight away. Are you sensing that we will see immediate action?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're thanks to Biden and Harris, we've become the first Western country that has that sanctions sex trafficking of underage girls across our border. It's absolute insanity. And so you've got a really a humanitarian crisis at the border, Kevin. So that has to be stopped immediately. I'm glad to hear troops are amassing. Greg Abbott, who Trump was very complimentary of, had been using National Guard troops, and other governors like Kristi Noem and Ron DeSantis had sent troops, National Guard troops, to aid on the border with Greg Abbott's National Guard's troops. I mean, it's so sad that we have to even be having this conversation, and I think it's just an abrupt end to it. Again, with a bunch of optimism too. Drill baby drill, the clips you just played, absolutely fantastic for the American people, great for the economy and lower energy prices, and great for the UK, great for the West, because we're going to lower energy prices for everyone. The UK, this is so sad, Kevin, thanks to the idiocy of both the Tories and now Labour, energy costs are 5 times as high in the UK for businesses as they are in the US. They're even 50% higher than Germany. So not only is this going to be good for the UK by being able to deliver liquid natural gas, which Biden stopped, so we can deliver cheaper energy to our friends in Great Britain, but also, you know, the country, the UK should take a page out of the Trump playbook, that's for sure.
Yeah, and that's what we're all very jealous of. America has got the deliverance that we wish we could get. I mean, all he's talking about is, you know, we sit around here, Greg, you know, you have to suffer this as well as a resident of London, of Britain. You know, we go, oh, net zero is so important, and therefore your energy bills will be soaring and rocketing for years and years to come because we've got to pay for the windmills, we've got to pay for the solar panels. And we're all thinking, but if we didn't, our energy bills would be a lot cheaper. If we started fracking, our energy bills will be astronomically cheaper, and yet we can't do that because apparently that's going to cause earthquakes in Blackpool, which it won't. So all of this nonsense, this imposition of left-wing politicians' virtue signalling, of their halo polishing on the rest of us, Trump is getting rid of that at a stroke. We're still stuck with it, but he's just getting rid of it. And that is a sight to see. It's a glorious sight to see, isn't it?
Yeah, let the private sector operate. Let the job creators and the people that produce things, let them go about their business. It's better for wage growth. I mean, wages are 4% lower now than when Biden took office. That is atrocious. That's just absolutely insane. And now in the UK, you have the energy minister is called the Minister of Energy Security and Net Zero. Talk about the mother of all oxymorons. So it's just lunacy, Kevin. So I hope that the UK can follow. I hope that the rest of the West will follow. We're seeing it in Canada. We're seeing it in Germany with the rejection of the woke left. And I think you'll see more of it in the rest of the continent.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, you're a resident of Britain, of London. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at our switchboard. I'm listening to Talk's audience. I mean, that the sort of level of jealousy that we have of America, that you've got this guy who's plain-speaking guy who's come in and said, enough of all this virtue signalling, halo polishing claptrap, only designed to make elite politicians feel good about themselves, but to make life much more difficult and more expensive for the citizens of America and still Britain. This guy's just come in and said, no, we're not going to do it anymore. The sense of kind of, it's like a dark cloud has been lifted, and you think, well, why, you Americans must think, why did we put up with this for so long? Here in Britain, we're thinking, why are we still putting up with it? But do you think that the Trump effect will change things in Britain?
I do. I really do. I think Labor would be very wise to pivot. You know, Bill Clinton did this in 1994. He came into office in the election of 92 as a liberal, as a left-leaning liberal, and he realized that the American people had no tolerance for that, and so he pivoted when he lost the midterms in 94, and he was very successful because he did that. So Labor shouldn't feel compelled to die with their lunacy and their luxury belief policies. Change. Maybe you don't have to dress it up as right-wing or populist, but just move to the center, especially on energy policy, especially on tax and deregulation. The economy in the UK is anemic. That's being kind. And so if they could just take a few pages out of Trump's playbook, they're not going to take all the pages. Let's face it. They're a party of the left. But it would be very liberating for the people in the UK if they did so.
I was talking to Alex Phillips earlier, who's over there with you celebrating the changing of the guard there in Washington. And she said that, she said the air of optimism was almost palpable. People were very excited. A much needed change is coming, is happening now. But she said the other element of all this that is palpable is that Trump's administration really don't particularly want to know about Keir Starmer and his Labour gang, his band of socialist merry men and women. So I just think that the guest list at the inauguration is extraordinary. So you've got Alex Phillips, of course, but you've got Boris Johnson is there, Priti Patel is there, Suella Braverman is there, Liz Truss is there. Not a single member of the current government, not a single member of the Labour government's cabinet is there. Keir Starmer's not invited. The Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner's not invited. The Home Secretary's not invited. None of them were invited. So Alex was saying you can feel the contempt that Trump's administration have for this bunch of dinosauric socialists that we've got in charge on this side of the Atlantic. Would you concur with that?
Absolutely. I saw all of the people you listed, I think with the exception of Suella. I saw them all on Friday night and Saturday night. Nigel was with us. We had, Steve Bannon was there. But we had a great contingent from the UK. It was really great to see. And there were 2 nights in a row, there were British-American social functions. Energy level was enormous. And a little bit of jealousy, some of that, wish we could do this at home. But I think there's hope. But if you heard the president's speech, the way he was criticizing the policies of Biden, I don't know how he could possibly stomach, working with Keir Starmer and the Labor government when everything that Labor is doing is a page out of the Biden playbook. And that playbook has been firmly rejected by voters. And by the way, as you know, Kevin, it doesn't work. It just makes things more expensive and makes people's lives much more miserable.
Yeah, this is how stupid Starmer is. He still believes in socialism. If you haven't noticed, Keir, it's kind of been proved over a number of years now that it really, really doesn't work. Last point, Greg, I know you've already been quoted on this, and I tend to agree with you. You feel that even though he hasn't made a decision yet, Donald Trump won't reject Peter Mandelson, Lord Mandelson, as our ambassador in Washington. You think he'll probably, I mean, for the sake of diplomacy, he'll let it go. But I don't think he'll be talking to Mandelson very much.
No,
what are your feelings?
Yeah, that's not going to be a productive relationship. You know, you have a man of the left. You know, they could have just stuck with the current ambassador. That would have been wise. Who's apparently done a great job. I don't know her personally, but I think that was a big mistake. You know, just when Keir and David Lammy were going through their kiss and make up tour and trying to get back in the good graces, they send someone like Mandelson. I think it's a big mistake.
Yeah, Mandelson, of course, is the man. So David Lammy, now there's barely a single member of our Labour front bench, our Labour cabinet, barely a single cabinet minister or cabinet secretary who hasn't said something very insulting about Donald Trump. Now, the foreign secretary, David Lammy, as we know, called him a neo-Nazi. And our new man in Washington, our new ambassador, Peter Mandelson, called him a white supremacist. You know, these are extraordinary claims. These are extraordinary insults. And he won't want to know them, will he?
And you know, we've seen people make those remarks about Trump and then kiss and make up. Marco Rubio, even J.D. Vance. But first of all, they weren't diplomats. They were political, in some ways, opponents at the time. In the case of Rubio, but you know, these are supposed to be diplomatic people. It's hysterical, but Trump will overlook that if they start to move a little bit to the center. If they start to embrace working for the people and not working for the luxury beliefs in Westminster and Islington. And so I think they could have a good relationship with President Trump. Trump doesn't care about insults. He's the king of insult people. So, you know, he'll get over it if they have some common sense. But if they continue to embrace the Biden policies and the Biden luxury boutique issues, they're going to fail, and Trump will not tolerate that.
They're student ideologues. That's the problem. They're like sixth formers, you know. They're silly little political age-old beliefs that they've got, and they clash very much with what Donald Trump believes, and therefore I can't see that the special relationship will be in any way special, unless we're talking about Donald's friendship with Donald Trump. Or rather his friendship with Nigel Farage, which should be interesting to watch. Well, Greg, I'll let you get back to the parties. Good to talk to you, and stay in touch. That's Greg Swenson, our friend of the show, leader of the Republican Overseas Organisation here in London, of course. So next up, let's talk about Gaza. Let's talk about the release of the hostages. Very happy scenes. But what about the hostages that won't be released? What's going on there? And just how safe is this ceasefire deal? We will talk about that next, so stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
In a little while, I'll take your calls, 03444991000, and I'll read some of your messages, most of which seem to be revolving around everybody's utter jealousy that America has got Trump, who's going to change the states for the better, who's going to get rid of all this wokery, this net zero claptrap, this nonsensical liberal political elitism that we all suffer over here. He's going to get rid of it. Back to common sense. Everybody's so jealous that we're still stuck with it here. You know, still this net zero is going to cost us a fortune. Why? Won't make any difference. What is the point of our net zero bid now that America, the biggest business country in the world, has just abandoned it? It's gone. They're not doing it anymore. We know China already doesn't do it. Russia doesn't do it. India doesn't do it. Brazil doesn't do it. All the big industrial countries don't bother with net zero. Why are we bothering? It won't make any difference. Why are we bothering? We only produce less than 1% of the world's carbon emissions. It's nonsense. And yet Ed Miliband wants to signal his virtue, polish his halo and say, look, we're world leaders. So what? Enough of this madness. Enough of this lunacy, this virtue signalling lunacy. 03444991000. We'll talk about that in just a little while. Now, let's, as I say, there are other world events going on, very big events in Gaza. The release of the hostages began over the weekend. Let's talk to my next guest, journalist, Jewish journalist, Jonathan Sakadoty, who keeps an eye on these things for us. So welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Good evening.
First of all, now, obviously good news. We started to see some of the hostages being released over the weekend. But I've had this sort of kind of problem. I can't quite work out what's happening. Perhaps you can help me. So 33 hostages are slated for release as part of this ceasefire deal. They're going to be released at the rate of 3 every week for some reason. But that doesn't add up to all of the hostages, does it? So if and when we get to the point, Jonathan, when all these 33 hostages have been released, what happens to the other hostages?
Yeah, this is a deal like no other, really. And you can see those images there of these savages basically trampling over the Red Cross vehicles which are trying to evacuate those 3 poor women who've been held for 471 days, abducted from their homes or from a party in the nearby to the Gaza Strip and kidnapped into Gaza, treated dreadfully, no doubt. These images are absolutely chilling, and all the people in the UK who are celebrating this cause, who are marching in our streets, who insist on marching past synagogues and pretending that this has nothing to do with their hatred of Jews, all those people ought to watch this. These men with their faces covered, their green headbands on, their guns in their hands, shooting in the air, people cheering on the streets, Kaiba, Kaiba, Ya Yahud, a war cry in Islam which looks back to a time when Jews were slaughtered by Muslims and raped. They need to ask themselves what it is they're supporting, and I think we can see it also in the terms of that deal. The idea that they will drip feed these abductees back into Israeli society in return for hundreds of Palestinian terrorists, many with blood on their hands, is absolutely disgusting. And the world, the Western world, should hang its collective head in shame that this is what it's come to. This long, it's gone on this long, these poor people kept locked up, tortured, raped, many of them dead now in Gaza, all because people found it too hard to simply say that as a humanitarian issue, these people should never have been kept this way, never mind for this long. Thank goodness for Donald Trump putting pressure at this stage. But even that, too little, too late. We won't see them all come back. Many of them are already dead, and this deal, which will work in stages, there's going to be a stage 2 and a stage 3 before we see all of the remaining hostages returned, and we know that quite a number of them are no longer alive. This deal is sadly just not enough. There is nothing we can do to redeem ourselves in the conscience of those people who have been kept imprisoned this way.
Does, though, Jonathan, this deal incorporate or provide provision for, at least in theory, in the end, the release of every single hostage? Because they keep saying 33 hostages. Well, as you say, we don't know how many are dead, but 33 hostages hopefully will not comprise all of the living hostages. So does this deal still allow Hamas to keep some hostages prisoner?
Well, theoretically, if they get through phase 1 and then they go into negotiations halfway through that for phase 2 and then after that for phase 3, they could see the hostages return. But I think everybody knows that is almost impossible, very unlikely to happen. I personally would be surprised if we got past even this phase 1, if it was even completed. The last time Hamas made a deal and were forced to make a deal with Israel, they ended up breaking the terms on their side and the war resumed. I suspect something similar might happen if there is the appetite among the new Trump team in the States to allow Israel to go back and finish off Hamas and to make sure that it can't have control over the Gaza Strip. But as you said, they can't all be returned anyway because so many of them are sadly, tragically no longer alive. The way that this deal was structured was that the women and children were meant to be in this first round. It was meant to be done in order of humanitarian need. Well, the fact that we didn't see those 2 infants, the baby, Kfir Bibas, his sibling, it means that they're probably not alive because those hostages who are no longer alive are not to be released in the first wave, and therefore the assumption is that those children sadly may not be alive. It's speculation, of course. We don't know because they've given no contact to the Red Cross, no contact to the outside world, only occasional proofs of life in videos where they've tortured people into making statements of Hamas's will on tape. And I think that even that, watching these Red Cross vehicles turn up in Gaza and behave like Uber drivers to ferry these hostages out, it's pathetic. Where's the Red Cross been all this time? Why hasn't the Red Cross been pressuring them to get hold of the hostages? One of these 3 women who was released has need for daily medication. She's not obviously had that any of the time she's been kept as an abductee in Gaza. And just these images are utterly repulsive. These crowds of marauding men. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of October the 7th when we saw images coming out of Gaza of them dragging the hostages and corpses into Gaza. We saw the same so-called innocent civilians spitting on the bodies, beating them. Shani Luke, that poor woman who was killed, saw her naked body in the back of a pickup truck. I saw a child spit on it as it was paraded through Gaza for people to cheer. And this is exactly what we're seeing now. All the while, these images of well-fed, clean, well-clothed people, and we were told that Israel was starving the people of Gaza, that the people of Gaza are innocent civilians, all one and all of them. Certainly doesn't look like that looking at these images. This looks chilling and horrific, and people really need to understand what this war is really about. They need to really get on side here. This is utterly atrocious. The idea that we should make another terrorist Islamic state in Gaza next to Israel after what it did on October the 7th, just unthinkable.
Yeah, and the trouble with these visuals, I mean, these guys with the green headbands and the balaclavas, I mean, these are Hamas, and therefore this deal self-evidently gives them the justification to say Netanyahu and Israel said you were going to wipe us out, that we wouldn't exist at the end of this dispute. Here we are. So that mission quite clearly has not been accomplished, and that could spell trouble. Before you go, Jonathan, let me ask you, back here in London over the weekend, there was a massive hate march, or a pro-Palestinian march in central London, and among the many thousands of protesters was almost inevitably that veteran anti-Israel campaigner, Jeremy Corbyn. Some people say he's anti-Semitic. They might think that. I couldn't possibly comment. Also, former Labour shadow Chancellor John McDonnell. They were among the demonstrators. Apparently, they stand accused of being part of a break-off group, a splinter group, that defied the terms of that march by breaking off and going to surround a nearby synagogue in Portland Place in London. That was very much against the terms of this march. Now, both Corbyn and McDonnell have presented themselves to the police subsequent to that yesterday, I believe, to be interviewed under caution. They, of course, are saying they did nothing wrong. But what are your thoughts about that?
These so-called marches and protests have just gone on too long, if you ask me. I don't understand why these people feel the need to inconvenience everybody else's lives because of their weird, peculiar politics, because they want somehow to punish Jews or to condemn Israel for its existential war after it was attacked by jihadi savages. I think it's about time that we cast these people into the political dustbin of history. They are irrelevant people. Labour even managed to shake off Jeremy Corbyn, though I wouldn't say it's done that much better with Keir Starmer in terms of its attitude towards Israel and Jews. At least he makes a pretense, I suppose. But if you ask me, this particular march was very useful and illustrative of what's really going on here. The police finally placed some restrictions on this march by saying that they couldn't take the route they wanted because it would go past a synagogue. For the third time they would have been doing this, and it does inconvenience people there. I've spoken at that synagogue, I've spoken with the rabbi of that synagogue and congregants of that synagogue. People are terrified to go to synagogue when they have to go through that crowd and know that crowd is marauding past, and they were told by the police that they couldn't do that. Rather than make alternative plans to have a fixed protest, which is what was requested of them, many decided that no, they had to march, they had to break what the police had put in place, those conditions, and that meant effectively what they were disagreeing with was the idea that they shouldn't inconvenience Jews, they shouldn't stop themselves threatening Jews at their synagogue. Well, that says it all, if you ask me. And as I said, there was a ceasefire coming into place, and these people have been marching for 15 months calling for a ceasefire now. Then there was a breakaway crowd of them at this event, and I've seen the videos of them online, saying they don't want a ceasefire. Well, that's very clear. This was never about a ceasefire. This was never about Palestinian rights. As far as I can see, in my opinion, this was always about trying to intimidate people on the streets of London and around the country and trying to impose their views on other people. That's not how you win an argument, and it's not how you persuade people, not through intimidation and threats. And I hope the police will continue to be tough on this sort of thing. Most of us have had enough of it.
Well said, Jonathan. Really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. That's Jonathan Sakadozi there. He's a Jewish journalist, British journalist, but he writes very much on these kind of issues. And so what do you think? Is that deal, is the ceasefire deal in Gaza enough? Will Israel rue the day it made this deal? I mean, those Hamas guys there, we're here, look at us with our green headband, our machine guns. You didn't get rid of us, did you? How many of the hostages are dead? How many, will they all get released? How fragile is this deal? Let me know. 03444991000. Your calls, your texts when we come back. Stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I got one from Marty Drew here as a message. Love your show, Kev. Love your politics. I think you should lead Reform UK. I think they got a leader. He's not doing a bad job, but thank you, Marty. But anyway, he then goes on to say, but the break music is terrible. I'm a musician. May I write a decent theme for the breaks, please? Marty, you may. You may. You might not like our break music. I couldn't possibly comment. But yeah, I'd like to hear whatever you got to offer, Marty. What else have we got? As I say, lots and lots of jealousy about what's going on in America. Here's one from Ivor. He said, I'm jealous. Oh, how we need a Trump. We also need a British dream. Low taxes, lower energy costs. How can business compete when we are paying 26p a kilowatt and they are paying 9p per kilowatt? What a very good point from Ivor there. Absolutely. Sophia, come on, Trump. Do your last term in the USA, and I'm not sure if you're a British citizen, but come here and be our next Prime Minister. Well, let's make him a British citizen, then he can be our Prime Minister, can't he? A lot of people saying this. This is from John. Mandelson being chosen to be our man in Washington is an insult to Donald Trump after what he said about Donald. Dracula would have been a better choice. Well, you know what they call Mandy, don't you? The Prince of Darkness. So maybe Dracula was our choice. Anyway, let's. I'll read more of your messages later on in the show. We'll have some more calls in an hour or so, 9:30, 9:20 in fact. But first, let's go to the phone. So let's talk to our friend Mark in Lincolnshire. Hello, Mark.
Hello there, Kev, mate. You all right, buddy?
I'm all right. I'm pretty jealous of America right now, aren't you?
Yeah, well, that was my point, really. I mean, you know, everybody's jumping up and down about the inauguration. Oh, it's fantastic. And I'm not happy about it, Kev. I'm really peed off about it, to be honest. I mean, at the end of the day, he's a bloody Yank, isn't he?
Well, yeah. But then again...
So I don't see... People are really hopeful, and I want to be hopeful as well, but I'm a realist. I've been watching how Starmer's doing, what he's doing, you know, the way he comes across, his ideology particularly. He ain't going to listen to Trump. He would sooner see this country sink than take pressure from Trump, I think. That's my opinion.
Oh, I agree with you.
I think, you know...
I totally agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, this lot, they are, not only are they socialists, they're very stubborn socialists. You know, they're like sixth form students, you know, with an ideological approach to life. And they can't stand Trump. They hate Trump and everything he stands for. And Trump is destroying everything they stand for. That's the point. Their wokery, their net zero nonsense, their left-wing claptrap, their identity politics, their trans stance. Trump's having none of that. Trump is talking the language of the man and the woman in the street. What we all say in the pubs and the clubs and the restaurants. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer is still essentially living in Islington and Hampstead in North London, talking the language of people who read The Guardian. Simple as that, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%, Kev.
Yeah, you're right. There's not much we can do. We'll just have to wait for Starmer to self-destruct over the next few years. But the relationship between this government and Trump's administration, I think, is going to be difficult, to say the least. Mark, better move on, but good call as always. Thanks for ringing. Mark in Lincolnshire. Let's quickly go to Chris in Epsom. Hello, Chris.
Evening, Kevin. Great show.
Thank you.
I'd like to say a bit about Trump and then get back to the UK.
Yeah.
It was a tremendously awe-inspiring speech.
I agree. It was great, wasn't it?
I've got confidence that he'll do what he says he's going to do. And if Vance gets 8 years after him, America's in for 12 years of phenomenal politics and growth.
I think
we could do. I reiterate what other people have said. We need the same over here. But I want to get back to two things here.
Yep.
First of all, Beck Cooper calling for an inquiry today, and
on the Southport murders, yes.
Yeah, that's. No, I can't say what I want to say on air.
Yeah, be careful with it.
Yeah, I know. I'm biting my tongue. The murder charge was just murders. It wasn't a terrorist act. They haven't charged him with that.
Well, they did charge him with possessing an Al Qaeda training manual. That's pretty terrorist, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's different, Kev. That's why it's different charges. The murders are not being put down as a terrorist murder.
I say that is dubious. I don't care what they want to put them down to. I say there's every evidence, there's every appearance that this guy was a terrorist. He was motivated by Islamist terrorism.
Kevin, you cut me off before I finished what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Right. The reason that is they don't want the information coming out that Nigel knows as well, that they were told, as Liz Truss said, is the normal way of doing things. Within the 24 hours of them finding the manual and the writing, they would have been informed that he was a terrorist plotter, maybe a lone wolf, but he was a terrorist plotter. And they would have known straight away about him being put forward 3 times and that not happening to prevent.
Oh, they know. Yeah, they knew. Yeah, absolutely. They knew what was found in his house. They knew day one. Starmer and Cooper knew day one that the Al Qaeda manual and ricin poison had been found in his home. Yeah, but they kept that quiet.
Kevin, they kept that quiet, and that's why she's announced the inquiry. She's trying to control the narrative.
Yeah.
But the information that they knew, when they knew it, doesn't come out. That's what's happening. And the next one, which is really slipped by with everything that's going on in America and this, is Lammy. Lammy said to Parliament that he consulted the Chagossians. They were on this morning's show with Mike, and they said that nobody from the government has approached them.
Yeah.
He's done the same as Mandelson done twice. He's lied to Parliament. He needs to be called back and questioned.
Yeah, I mean, I don't suppose they'll bother on that, though. But I agree with you. Lammy is a massive problem. The Chagossians never get consulted. I mean, they haven't lived there since the 1960s, so it's unclear what they could contribute to the debate anyway. But they certainly should be involved to an extent. But I take your point, Chris. Very good call. Thank you for ringing, Chris in Epsom. There, we better go to break now. When we come back, we are going to be talking about Peter Mandelson again. Will Trump block him as our ambassador to Washington? Interesting. We'll discuss that with Ryan Saby, Deputy Political Editor at The Sun, after these messages. Stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's talk about the special relationship. Let's talk about the special relationship between Donald Trump and Britain's new ambassador, well, at least Keir Starmer hopes he will be our new ambassador. That's Peter Mandelson, Lord Mandelson, dinosauric Blairite, cabinet member all the way back in those years for Tony Blair, always getting into trouble. Nicknamed the Prince of Darkness for his Machiavellian scheming behind the scenes. Anyway, he's got the gig, but Donald Trump could technically veto him. So we'll ask Ryan Saby from The Sun about that in just a little while. But first, have a look at this.
My heart goes out to you. It is thanks to you that the future of civilization is...
Yeah, well, he's getting a lot of flack for that because he's doing it looks like a Nazi salute. To be fair, it's being written off as just him being excitable, and there was no Nazi references in his speech, but there's very clear pictures that don't look very good. Probably just Musk not really thinking things through, but worth bringing to your attention that. Well, let's get back to the story we were about to do. Well, let's go straight over to The Sun's Deputy Political Editor, Ryan Saby. Welcome, Ryan.
Evening, Kevin.
What's your feeling? I mean, Trump is leaving it hanging in the air. He could technically, as president, block Peter Mandelson as our man in Washington, as our ambassador in Washington. My instinct is he'll make Keir Starmer nervous, but won't actually do that. But, Mandelson's on record as calling him a white supremacist. I mean, the relationship between the President of the United States and Britain's ambassador in Washington, our most important diplomat, is not going to be good, is it?
Well, it certainly hasn't got off on the right footing if you go back to some of the comments that Lord Mandelson made in 2019. He really sort of went for the jugular with Trump when it seemed to be fashionable to, and he called him a reckless and a danger to the world. Now, in an ideal world, that wouldn't happen. Dame Karen Pierce is currently in that role, and listening to commentators over recent days and weeks, that there is an element of surprise that Keir Starmer didn't stick with her, particularly for maybe for a little bit longer. But we are expecting Lord Mandelson to come in there and be our next ambassador, but it is hanging in the air a little bit. Speaking to people in and around Downing Street earlier today, it seemed that they don't expect any hiccups on this, but Donald Trump certainly, obviously he's only just got into office, and I think there's some paperwork that formally has to be signed, but let's see what happens in the coming days. I think it would be a major surprise to see Lord Mandelson not get this job. I think it really would cause some sort of damage between Downing Street and the White House. So expect it to go ahead, but I don't think the things that Lord Mandelson would have said back 4 or 5 years ago will be forgotten quickly.
Yeah, and I suspect that the relationship between our embassy and the White House is not going to be good, nor is the White House's relationship with the rest of the cabinet and Keir Starmer, most of whom at some point seem to have insulted him because it made them feel good about their left-wing credentials or whatever. Now, on the guest list today, I mean, it's not necessarily automatic that world leaders are invited to an inauguration, although quite a few have been today, but no invitation for Keir Starmer, no invitation for any member of his cabinet, no invitation for the man that we want to be our ambassador, Peter Mandelson, and yet invited were Liz Truss, Suella Braverman, Priti Patel, Boris Johnson, even Alex Phillips from Talk was invited. This is pretty significant, isn't it?
Yeah, I think in a way. Now, but one thing I would just hold your horses a little bit, and a lot of those invites to the likes of Suella Braverman have come from. They're all in a private capacity. Some of them have been invited by individual sort of senators or Republicans or congressmen. So I think we should just bear that in mind. But I do think it is significant, or certainly, eyebrows raised at the fact that Giorgia Meloni, the Italian Prime Minister, was invited to that. And not only would you see it as a snub, maybe if you wanted to phrase it like that, to Keir Starmer, but also the likes of Emmanuel Macron from France and other world leaders. So I think it's seen as the way to do it, that your ambassador is there, and maybe if there's a very sort of special relationship between the president and the individual country leader, you'd expect them to be there. So it is interesting on that front. But I think in terms of the other individuals around that, I think that they have taken their lead or taken their invitations from senior Republicans.
Indeed. And Rachel Reeves is over in Davos, so we're hearing that when she went last year, her dance card was completely full. People couldn't wait to talk to her. She said that Britain would be open for business, bright new era, under Labour and all that. This year she's gone over there, and the business community, who are there, of course, not that keen on her budget, her £40 billion tax grab, which they say is bad for business. And apparently people don't particularly want to talk to her this year, and she hasn't even got a main speaking slot on the stage there. So rather different circumstances for her this year.
Yeah, no, totally. No, I think that when she went last year, it was full of the energy of being in opposition, being that shadow chancellor, and actually having the prospect of her getting into power. Everyone wanted to talk to her. Now, the fact that she's had that budget is a tax-raising budget, and I think that the sort of she's got some meetings with some big businessmen, but I think it'll be seen as in a totally different light. The way that she's dealt that hammer blow to business, that's certainly how they have seen it in recent months. So, look, she's got some big meetings. She's going out there. She's representing Britain to try and get some of that inward investment here, but in totally different circumstances. Once she's delivered that budget, big businessmen and all that will be talking to her on the fringes. But let's just see if she can talk. She'll be there to talk Britain up. Let's just see if she gets a warm reception.
Well, I hope she does talk Britain up, because she usually talks it down. So does Keir Starmer. We're hearing that he desperately wants to get a trade deal in place with Donald Trump, with America. But we're also hearing that Donald Trump might be minded to put him at the back of the queue, or the back of the line, as they say in America. Very quickly, what are the prospects of a trade deal? Not great, I would have thought.
I don't think it's in the priority of America, but I think you might see sort of sector by sector deals. I think you're more likely to see that than a big free trade agreement that'll take a lot of time. Eventually, yes, but maybe not the main priority for the president. Brilliant, Ryan. Thank you so much for your time. Ryan Savey there, Deputy Political Editor of The Sun. When we come back to America, we're going to go over to the West Coast and talk to Kinsey Schofield about an eventful week for Harry and Meghan. Yet another. So stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Yeah, I'm taking your calls in just a little while. 0344 499 1000. Essentially, are you jealous of America now that Trump is in charge? Now that Trump has taken a broom to all of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's wokery, got rid of net zero claptrap. No more expense for Americans on net zero. The Green Deal, axed, gone. They're going to drill, baby, drill. They're going to rely on fossil fuel. It's going to be so cheap for them. That will open up the economy. It will make America a place of free speech and free business. There's an air of optimism over there. It's all we ever needed. Just leave us alone. These left-wing politicians, these Democrats, these Labour politicians telling us what's good for us. Yes, you must spend a lot on your energy bills because it'll save the planet. Oh, there are 107 genders because that's the only be-kind attitude to have. That's what we metropolitan elites think. Yeah, but the thing is, you're wrong. There are 2 genders. You know, Donald Trump said it in his inauguration speech. They're going to enshrine that in American law. They're going to get rid of the new Green Deal, the Green New Deal, or whatever it was called. And they're just going to charge Americans a good, cheap rates for their energy. No more of this net zero nonsense. I mean, are you jealous? Never mind the Green Deal. Green with envy. Are you jealous? Or do you think it's a terrible thing that's going on over there? 0344 499 1000. Plus, what the hell has been going on with this guy, Axel Rudagapana, the Southport murder suspect, who we can now no longer call a suspect. He is the murderer. He was the murderer. He killed 3 little kids at a Taylor Swift dance class. He tried to kill 10 more people, 8 of them children. He was found at his home in possession of ricin poison and also an Al-Qaeda training manual. The authorities decided, though, he had nothing to do with terrorism. He was referred 3 times to the counter-extremism scheme, PREVENT, which deals with kids who've been radicalised. But those geniuses decided that despite his stated desire to commit a massacre among school children, to murderously massacre school kids, he was fascinated with that he was no terrorist threat and therefore didn't need to be signed up to the PREVENT scheme. Sounds like a bit of a mistake to me, doesn't it, you? 0344 499 1000. What other horrors are we going to learn about what the authorities kept a secret from us? Don't forget, when we and anyone was suggesting maybe some kind of terrorism connection to what happened in Southport, Prime Minister, Yvette Cooper, local police chief, Crown Prosecution Service, no, you mustn't spread misinformation, this is wrong. Well, it wasn't that wrong, was it? It looks like it was the Prime Minister who's spreading misinformation, keeping us in the dark about the truth about this guy. He clearly was a terrorist threat, a threat of a terrorism exuded from him, you know, and nothing happened to him, and we know how that story ended, don't we? Somebody's got blood on their hands there. Somebody's made some very bad decisions about this guy, and I think we should be told. 0344 499 1000. Let me know what you think about all this after the next break, which will come in about 20 minutes. Before we get to any of that, let's go across to the West Coast, going to America a lot tonight, and talk to our brilliant royal commentator, Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kins.
Hi, Kev. Busy weekend for us on WhatsApp as we exchanged all of the wild stories coming out of Los Angeles about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle.
Absolutely. And I think the big one was, endorsing really everything that you and I have talked about over the past few months, endorsing what the Hollywood Reporter publication said about them. The Hollywood Reporter a few months back said that Meghan Markle was a nightmare employer. a tyrant in high heels who reduced grown men to tears. Of course, Meghan denied this, but guess what? We've now got Vanity Fair, an almost biblical publication, a publication that Americans treat very, very seriously again. Well, they might. It's a very serious publication. It's a serious magazine. All over its new edition, front page, is Harry and Meghan, American Hustlers. American Hustle. They are dismissed as a pair of hustlers trying to make trying to make a few quid, a few bucks in America. And I suppose that the gruesome twosomes disaster tourism to Los Angeles, when for a photo op they appeared in the middle of the wreckage of the LA fires. People have really reacted badly against that, and basically nobody wants to give them the time of day at the moment. We had Justin Bateman has said that they're disaster tourists. Kelly Osbourne led the charge, expressing her disgust over what she said were a couple of grief grifters, tragedy vultures, trying to cash in on the catastrophe, trying to look good, trying to look angelic. Looks as if that might have been the straw that broke the straw that broke the camel's back. Finally, people have had enough of these two, and you know, I can't see because of what Vanity Fair is saying about them. Vanity Fair, Kinsey, let's get your comments on this, is saying that Meghan is such a terrible employer that after one worker had to work with her on her podcast series, Archetypes, that worker was so traumatised that they had to go into long-term therapy because Meghan was so hellish to work with. I mean, these are very damaging allegations, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly not flattering. I spoke to somebody that works with Vanity Fair and said, what kind of process goes into a piece like this? Because just the therapy idea alone is incredibly, for their brand, it's horrific. And then there's the rumor that Meghan is shopping a post-divorce book. So I asked somebody that worked at Vanity Fair, how do you get away with this, right? These are some very serious allegations. And they said that months and months of research and sourcing went into this piece, and that legal had to approve every single word, that Vanity Fair and their legal team ensured that there was nothing in here that Harry and Meghan could sue them over. I mean, these two people are so litigious. So I am very confident in the sourcing. I'm very confident in the material. They described it as forensic research. And to me, that's a pretty compelling argument.
Yeah, absolutely. And they tried to kick back against the Hollywood Reporter. This was about 3 months ago, wasn't it, when the Hollywood Reporter accused the Duchess of being tantrum-prone, a tyrant in high heels, reducing men to, and indeed other workers to tears with her style of being a boss. Shouting at people, really upsetting them. Well, they kick back against that and says, oh, this is just people with an agenda. Well, they can't keep kicking back at this stuff. As you quite rightly say, well, look, the Hollywood Reporter, Kinsey, is a very serious publication. It isn't just a tabloid who just chucks these kind of accusations into its pages for sensationalist reasons, and nor for God's sake, is Vanity Fair. Vanity Fair, this was like a 5,000-word article going into every detail of what's been pretty disastrous for these two, for Harry and Meghan, since they came to America, was it in 2020, something like that. So all in all, a really, really bad week for them. And they can deny this as much as they like, but now it's written in stone, isn't it, that Meghan is pretty much a nightmare to be around if you work for her.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to reiterate that sources close to the Sussexes are saying that they're dismissing this Vanity Fair article. They're just simply dismissing it. Well, In 2017, Vanity Fair gave Meghan her big break, and she graced the cover of their magazine with the headline, "She's Just Wild About Harry." And we found out in Valentine Lowe's book, Courtiers, that Harry and Meghan drove Vanity Fair crazy trying to get the headline changed on the website, contemplated suing Meghan's brand new PR team that helped orchestrate that cover, and accused them of being, Vanity Fair accused them of being racist for using the line "Wild About Harry," which originated from a 1930-something movie starring Judy Garland, Babes in Arms, where Judy wore blackface. So we know that they are not just dismissing this. When you go as far as to accuse a beautiful, sweet cover like the one Meghan got in 2017, something she would never have been able to have had she not been dating Prince Harry, there's no way she would have scored a Vanity Fair cover had it not been for Prince Harry. To go and accuse them of racism over the cute line on the cover, dishes are flying in Montecito. They're, dismissing this story. What a joke.
Yeah, I mean, they can't keep doing it. I mean, they dismissed the Hollywood Reporter, saying, oh, it's just rumours spread by someone with an agenda. And now they're dismissing the very thorough work of Vanity Fair, 5,000-word, thoroughly well-researched article. They was dismissing that as distressing. Well, you might be distressed by it, but that isn't a denial, is it? They can't keep denying this stuff. I mean, they're in trouble because of this, aren't they?
Yes, I mean, there have been a couple of other reactions to it. A friend who remains in contact with both Prince William and Harry told the Daily Beast the Vanity Fair divorce story seemed very unfair. There was a book, but there wasn't a book. She was planning for a life after divorce, but they are totally in love. What? There was not a shred of evidence. So they do have some people in their corner fighting back for them. But at the same time, it's interesting that they pick and choose very specific topics to react to. How many times can you deny that you're a bully? You really can't. And you've already scouted Us Weekly magazine for your redemption piece after The Hollywood Reporter. Where do you go from here? The National Enquirer? I just don't know where they can go to try to tell. Or People magazine. I mean, it was People that got all the exclusives about Harry and Meghan on the ground after the LA fires. We are smarter than that. We see that there are certain publications that are willing to give them the press they want, not the press they've earned or deserve. And so we don't take those publications seriously. Vanity Fair is a very serious and respected publication, and I trust this piece.
Yeah, and when the Hollywood Reporter article appeared, a big investigation, they interviewed 12 people who'd either had worked for Meghan or were still working for Meghan. There was talk in the air from the Meghan camp that they might sue, and I remember the editor of the Hollywood Reporter went on to Access Hollywood, didn't he, the TV show over there, and said, if you want to sue, be my guest. You come for us then, because we have researched this fully, and you sue, we will win. Guess what? There was no lawsuit forthcoming, and I suspect, don't you, Kinsey, that Vanity Fair won't get a lawsuit either.
Yeah, and don't you remember right after the Hollywood Reporter article, the Beast did a follow-up with some of their contacts, aka the Sussex Survivors Club, and they said in September that Meghan had her psycho moments and could be a demon, and that they felt vindicated. They told the Daily Beast over the weekend that they felt vindicated by these new claims. At the time, too, they said that they kind of joked about the fact that Meghan was the classic narcissist, but they could not believe that she had asked contacts to talk to a magazine and, talk about what a great boss she was, what a joke that was, and how it just kind of proved to them that she was the classic narcissist. But when reacting to this Vanity Fair piece, one said, I feel desperately sorry for the people affected because I have been there, but I also feel vindicated. All those people saying she is the world's greatest boss should be ashamed of themselves. It's obviously very tempting to work for her when you are being wooed and love bombed, but people should be in no doubt she is a nightmare. I would think the atmosphere will be particularly hellish now. Everything is going to a bad word. It's fecal matter, but they used the other word. But that employee saying everything's going to you know what, it's probably hellish working for Meghan Markle today.
I bet. And a little word about, which was included in the Vanity Fair article, they've made it very clear that Meghan has never said this, there's no confirmation of this, but it was in the article, and this is this extraordinary claim that Meghan has been shopping around publishers asking if they might be interested in a post-divorce memoir written by her. I mean, if that's true, that's something of a bombshell, isn't it?
Yeah, well, and that's my point. That's really the only claim Harry and Meghan's side is responding to say that that isn't true and that that doesn't exist, and pointing out the contradiction where basically the author says somewhere within the article that these two are madly in love, that she's confident that they're madly in love and that they act like they want to rip each other's clothes off when you're with them. But at the end, she then talks about this potential book, this post-marriage book. So Harry and Meghan's team are pushing back on that narrative. Yeah. But with all these other accusations, Beyonce turned down Meghan's podcast. Archetypes wasn't Meghan Markle's idea. Harry would gladly just stay at home and allow Meghan to do all the tough work to bring in the dough. They're not pushing back on any of these other allegations, which are all very damaging.
Indeed, and I like the way you say that Harry and Meghan have denied the reports that she's been shopping around for a post-divorce memoir deal. Well, Harry might not know, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, Harry's in the...
Yeah, well, Harry could deny it, but maybe he's being kept in the dark. Think about that, folks. Before we go, let's quickly talk about Harry. And this was another extraordinary revelation in this Vanity Fair article. You and I have laughed before about some of Harry and Meghan's hapless ideas that they had when they signed this ludicrously overpriced $100 million deal with Netflix for films and TV shows. You know, for example, they wanted to do Emily in Paris only with a bloke. You know, I don't think that's a very good idea. Their ideas were ridiculous. Now, we laughed about Harry's idea, which was that he goes around interviewing world leaders. So he suggested that he interviewed the Pope. He suggested that he interviewed Putin. He suggested that he interviewed Donald Trump. And you remember when he put this idea up to Netflix, all the executives go, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, we like that. We like that. So can you get that ball rolling, Harry? Can you sort of put the feelers out? Can you get Vladimir to come to you, or will you go to him? And he went, oh, no, you'll have to set the interviews up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, they did say in this article that it was not $100 million, the Netflix deal, but it was a multi-million-dollar deal. That they clarified that. Of course, we expect that it was likely Harry and Meghan's team that released that big number because they were trying to stick it to the British royal family. Additionally, the Spotify thing was, Harry interviewing world leaders was the Spotify project. And they actually talk about this in the piece, saying that Harry was trying to interview people that he considered sociopaths to figure out how they became, and who was going to jump in line to participate in that. You make a great point about the Rolodex, because they say that they expected Meghan Markle, with her pull in Hollywood to be able to bring in A-listers for her podcast. They say that she dropped the ball. She didn't have those contacts or friends. But I thought you were going to joke about, because this was my favorite, the idea that Harry should review Coco as a podcast. That, I mean, a 40-year-old man.
Chocolate, hot chocolate.
I mean, get a grip.
He wanted to do it. Yeah, you're right. He wanted to do a podcast where he sat down with a mate, a friend, a buddy, and they talked about hot chocolate. Oh, this is good, isn't it? Great idea, Harry. Go back to that sociopath idea. This was the essence of his idea about him interviewing Putin, Trump, and the Pope, people like that. It was this. It was based on this. He said, you know, they've all had traumatic childhoods. I don't know whether that's true or not. I'm pretty certain Donald Trump didn't have a particularly traumatic childhood. But he said they've all had traumatic childhoods, and they all turned out to be sociopaths. But I had a very traumatic childhood. You know, he had a traumatic childhood, by the way, Kinsey, but he doesn't like to talk about it, except 99% of his entire life. Never stops talking about it. He said, but I had a traumatic childhood and I didn't turn out to be a sociopath. So, you know, first of all, well, thank you for that bit of self-diagnosis. We could maybe analyse that. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. But can't this man-child realise that if you go to someone like Donald Trump and say, we'd like to interview you about what a sociopath you are, that they're not sort of on balance likely to say yes, are they?
I mean, well, Vanity Fair went to them and said, we'd like to talk to you about how you're grifters, and they said no thanks. Yeah. So this is the result of that as well. Yeah, I mean, I believe when this article says Prince Harry just wants to linger in the charity space and stay at home with the kids, and Meghan Markle is the one that wants to be the superstar and is the one that's obsessed with monetizing the title. I believe that to be true. I think she's going to milk everything, like, you know, and her neighbors were complaining about that, you know, that they said that they've become villains within Montecito, and her neighbors are really disgusted by the way that she is trying to milk the title to make a dime, you know, around this family that she turned her back on.
This is just last point, Kinsey. Great to talk to you as always. This is the essence of their problem going forward. 2025 is going to be a crunch year for them, and I think it's going to be a disastrous year for them. 24 was very bad. Everything started to fall apart. 25, I think it's going to implode. I really do. And here's the essence of the problem. As you just said, she still can't wait to be world famous, to be, you know, a Hollywood superstar, the famous Meghan. She just wants to be more and more famous. He wants to be less and less famous. So they are searching for very different targets, very different aims.
But they know that people don't like her, because in the article it says he's a completely different person when he's with her because people are so mean to her. Right? So they are aware that people don't like her. Take a step back. Allow people to forget. People are angry with them. They do not like them. And we're not going to buy her stupid tea towel that says American Riviera Orchard.
Yeah, and last point, I do believe that the straw that broke the camel's back for the American public and the British public, as you say, Kinsey, quite rightly, everybody was pretty disillusioned with them already. But the grief grifting, the disaster tourism down to the Los Angeles fire scene, walking through other people's houses, looking at their smouldering possessions, the embers, the destruction, for what suspiciously looked like a photo op, for them to look like angels, a good publicity. People were disgusted by that, weren't they?
It reminded us too much of Meghan showing up with a camera crew to Uvalde, Texas, right after there was a shooting at a children's school. They do this far too often. To have your photo taken amongst the worst day of people's lives is utterly revolting. And they have got to change the playbook immediately if they want to be accepted in any way, shape, or form.
And I know, Kinsey, that when you say that, you're speaking for millions of people in Los Angeles, or certainly a vast number of people, a very significant number of people appalled by that grief grifting that the gruesome twosome did when they went down to the fire scene there. Kinsey, fantastic to talk to you. I will join you tomorrow for another edition of your excellent podcast. Recollections may vary. Thank you very much, Kinsey Schofield. We better go to break now. When we come back, your phone calls and your messages. So you've got the rest of the show all the way until 10 p.m. By the way, Petri Hoskins takes over the helm at 10 p.m, so stand by for that. And in the meantime, stay tuned, stay exactly where you are.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Right, time for It's Your Turn. Just to read a quick message which sums up what I'm receiving from everyone here. Where is it? This is from Dorothy. Dorothy says, truly magnificent speech by President Trump. Everything he said is what we want to hear, but sadly all we get is depression and a stomach ulcer. Boy, I wish I were American. Dorothy from East Kilbride. I mean, as I said earlier, the jealousy from the people of Britain to the people of America is palpable. They've got a common sense guy who's going to deliver them from the darkness of dozy Democrat claptrap. No more politicians saying, oh, this is bad for you, it's going to cost you a lot of money, but I'm going to make you do it because it makes me feel good about myself. Net zero makes me, the politician, feel good. You can spend a lot of money on it. I'm going to make you do that so that we can say we're leading the world in the green revolution. All that crap. Aren't you sick of it? Aren't you sick of these politicians telling us there are 107 genders? No, there aren't. There are 2. Donald Trump just enshrined it in American law. Oh, for that over here. 0344 499 1000. Let's go to the calls. Let's go to Robert in Aberdeen. Hello, Robert.
Hello.
Hi. What would you like to say?
Well, first I'd like to congratulate you on probably the best radio channel in Britain now.
Thank you, Robert.
Probably the best TV channel because I've got it on constantly.
Good.
And I absolutely love it. And today's been a great day for freedom.
It has.
I just had a mad thought.
Yeah.
Trump's got his last, I think, 4 years, has he? 4 years, and then
he's got 4 years to go, yes.
Yeah, and then he can't be president again after that.
No.
Wouldn't it be great if he came to Britain and was Prime Minister?
That's exactly what I'm getting loads of messages about. Come and run Britain. I mean, a lot of people are saying worse than that, Robert. They're saying, well, you know, because he's talking about maybe invading Greenland or taking over the Panama Canal. A lot of people are saying, come and invade Britain. Come and take us over. I mean, I'd take it rather than have to put up with Keir Starmer and his liberal North London claptrap for another 4 years, 4.5 years. Let's have Donald, eh?
Absolutely, 100%. And I was thinking about these MPs and how we could get rid of Labour. If they all jumped ship and they joined Farage, that would give Farage the majority.
Yeah.
It would be impossible for the Labour Party to hold out. And I think if we got onto our MPs and say we want you to move over.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I wish it were true, Robert. I think the problem is the nation made their decision. As we all know, Britain did not vote for a Labour government. It voted against a Tory government. It was sick and tired of Tory mismanagement, Tory disasters, Tory catastrophes, lying to us about the migrant crisis, etc. Everybody, not me, but everybody wanted change. And we got Starmer, but this was not a positive vote. But because that vote was made, mate, I'm afraid, Robert, I think we're stuck with it for 4 years. I don't think we'll be able to get him out. We made our bed. I fear we're going to have to lie on it.
It's terrible to think that we can be under this tyranny that we're under.
Tyranny is the word, and it is terrible to think that, Robert. I agree.
Tyranny is definitely tyranny. The people of Britain don't deserve this. We fought tyranny.
Well, the people of Britain don't deserve it, Robert, but then again, the people of Britain made this decision. They voted Labour in with a massive majority, so the next time you got some snake oil salesman standing there promising you change, just not you, but the rest of us, don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. The only change that bloke's brought in is for the worse. Robert, I fear we're going to have to put up with it, but you never know, and I'm with you all the way. Let's get rid of Starmer if we can. Robert from Aberdeen making some good points there, I think. Let's go to Christchurch in Dorset and speak to Joseph. Hello, Joseph. What would you like to say?
Hello, Kevin.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good. What would you like to say, mate?
Well, I'd like to say, firstly, like the last chap, amazing that Trump's got in. You know, I've been listening to a lot of things he's been saying. It's very invigorating, you know, to hear those words, and it's a shame it can't float across the pond into this direction and get one other person thinking the same thing. But I think that's not going to really happen anytime soon.
Yeah, don't you wish, Joseph? I've been saying this all show.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Don't you wish that we had a leader who would say, enough of all this net zero claptrap. It's costing people too much money. Enough of all this lying about 107 genders. It's nonsensical and it insults our intelligence. Let's get back.
It really does.
Yeah, exactly. You know, law and order. Bring some law and order back. Get the bad guys. Put them in jail. All of that kind of stuff. But right now we're stuck with Keir Starmer, which is not a good look. Joseph, with you all the way. Good call. Thank you very much. Call me again. Joseph in Christchurch in Dorset there. And as Trump is now attending the inauguration parade, at least he's on his way to do that. He's in one of those sort of 5,000 car presidential corteges, a convoy, as far as the eye can see, transporting the president to watch the parade, his inauguration parade. So these events, Inauguration Day events, go on all day. Sun's come out there now, but it's very, very cold in Washington. But it's warm politically. That's what most people seem to be thinking. This is a new dawn in America, emerging from 4 years of dozy Democrat wokery and claptrap. We have got to wait another 4 years to be delivered from dozy, lousy Labour claptrap and wokery. Well, let's go to break, take some more calls after these messages. Give me a ring, 03444991000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
This is a message from Lorraine, and by the way, I got so many messages from people, texts and WhatsApp notes, saying that they just wish that Donald Trump was in charge here. And the people of this country, just like the people of America wanted it, we want to be delivered from this left-wing wokery. We want to be delivered from a government, from a net zero maniac, crazy Ed Miliband, just telling us that we have to spend loads of money, we have to be poorer and colder, and to have really expensive energy bills imposed on us, 5 times more expensive than America, so that he can go around saying that Britain is a world leader when it comes to carbon emissions. It won't make any difference because we produce less than 1% of the world's carbon emissions. We are not a polluting criminal. We're not a poisoner of the planet. So we are being charged a fortune. We are being, treated like sheep. We're having all this imposed on us by a government that just wants to polish its own halo, signal its virtue. We're a world leader in carbon emissions, and it's gonna make you bankrupt. Great. Give me Donald Trump. Donald Trump has just cancelled all their net zero claptrap. What is the point of our net zero claptrap if the biggest business nation in the world is no longer playing the game? China already doesn't play the game. India doesn't play the game. Russia doesn't play the game. Brazil doesn't play the game. America doesn't play the game. Why are we playing the game? It's pointless. 0344 499 1000. Let's go back to the phones. Let's speak to Angela in Wales. Hello, Angela.
Hello, Kevin. I am so proud of President Trump today. So proud, so proud. We need him here. We need him to help us out.
Yeah.
We really do need him to help us out because this bloody government needs to just be floored.
Yeah, I agree. All we can hope for, Angela, all we can hope for is this, that the Trump effect reverberates across the Atlantic, and the politics of this country starts to unfold in Donald Trump's common sense image, because that's the problem here. Our politics are mad. Our politics are just about, kind of Islington socialists being able to say to their pals over the dinner party circuit, aren't we wonderful? Look what we're doing for the planet. Never mind what it's costing you and me. Never mind British taxpayers. It's all about them. It's got to end. Got to end.
Back to the planet. I was with a 95-year-old this morning. She died this afternoon because she was so bloody cold. She died. It broke my heart. 95-year-old can't afford to put a bloody heating on.
Where was she, Angela?
95 years of age.
Was she in her house?
She was in her house. We found her dead. We were taking her to bingo. We found her dead. It was just unbelievable.
No heating on. No heating on. No heating.
My sister walked in that house. She said she couldn't do it. She said the house is so cold. There's something wrong.
And the poor old lady there, with the 95 years old.
No, dead. 95 years of age of the cold.
Angela, that is a story of our times, and thank you for telling it to us. Thank you for the call, and you keep in touch. Call me again. Angela in Wales. I'm just going to read a quick note. As I say, all my messages are about Donald Trump, or most of them, but a lot of them also about Southport. The government, Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, Calamity Cooper, today announced a public inquiry into the Southport murders. They're not keen on them when it comes to the Southport, to the rape gangs, the grooming gangs. They don't want a public inquiry there, but apparently they do into these murders. This is what Lorraine says. Make no mistake, Cooper ordering an inquiry into the Southport murders is an act of desperation in order to save both her and Starmer, and not to provide answers to the families and the public. It is a great way to kick something into the long grass and stall, whilst those who, despite writing unpleasant and in some cases repellent tweets, are now in jail even though their tweets had an element of truth about them. The whole thing stinks, from the arrest to the pleas. What do you think? I mean, let me know. Let's quickly go to Jerry in Burton-on-Trent, who wants to talk about Joe Biden's last-minute presidential pardons, which I think, Jerry, were mostly for his own family.
Doesn't it make you sick, Kev, eh?
It really does, yes.
But there's always a silver lining, Kev, because I don't know if you know, but anyone that gives a pardon, any president that gives a pardon, you think, right, well, they're left on the hook. But actually, they lose out on the Fifth Amendment. And if they're brought into Congress, like Fauci, all the rest of them, they cannot rely on the Fifth Amendment to say given information, because they lose that right.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see them squirm. The J6 committee, if you please. And as I'm so delighted that Shifty Schiff, you know, people probably don't know too much about him, but he is the one that spread lies about Trump when it came to this perfect call that Trump called it, but he lied about it through his teeth. And I hope they go for him. There's no reprieve for that crowd, you know. But Trump, my God, when he was giving out his speech, I thought, tick, tick.
Oh, yeah. It was a brilliant speech, and I hope he brings it all into effect. He seems very determined. He knows Washington much more than he did the last time he won an election, which was back in 2016. So I think we can look forward to a period of immense change, and about time too. Jerry, great call. Good to talk. To call me again. Jerry in Burton-on-Trent. It's true, Joe Biden, these presidents always get to issue a list of people they want pardoned from various crimes. Of course, he wants his son Hunter Biden to be pardoned from what many think is a long list of crimes, but also the rest of his family, himself. They do this. I mean, I think America, I love America, great country. I think it should get rid of presidential pardons because they make a mockery of America's great legal system. You know, how can you forgive, how can you just exonerate people from crimes they definitely committed just because you're the president? It's ridiculous. They should get rid of that, I think. Anyway, let's go to break, take more of your calls when we come back after these messages.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, you know I've often lobbied for this show to have a slogan, which is Stop the Madness. Stop the madness of net zero, stop the madness of wokery, etc., etc. Well, here's a snapshot of modern Britain for you. A guy called Abid Yunis. He was a grooming gang abuser. He was jailed in 2015 for sexually assaulting children. He's a paedophile sex abuser of children. He did 2.5 years in jail after being convicted from that. He is the owner of a property there up in the Leeds area. And guess what? He has put in for that property to be converted into a children's care home. The planning applications for the property owned by Eunice show that he previously submitted an application to change its use to a 21-bedroom hotel care home. And guess what? That is being considered now. Leeds Council are considering it. So here's the deal, Leeds Council. Don't let him do this. Don't give him permission to do anything. He's a convicted paedophile. He cannot run a care home. He cannot own a care home, and you must not give him this permission that he seeks. Please don't do that. So, convicted paedophile, one of the grooming gang, rape gang abusers who did 2.5 years, is now applying to Leeds Council to convert a 21-room property that he owns into a care home. And they're considering this. So, Leeds Council, you have your instructions. The answer's no. I'm right? Yes? OK. We've got that? Good. OK. Let's go back to the phones now. And let's talk to Jeffrey in Essex. Hello, Jeffrey.
Hello, Kevin. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, mate. What would you like to say?
Great day. Absolutely delighted with the speech from Trump, which is, unlike our politicians, very positive. Two things I took out of that. First, I'm delighted to know there's only male and female, which is what we all think. Those are the common sense. And I hope he puts his boot into this Garci-Chagos deal and makes a fool of the Garci-Starmer, who makes you so angry over that, and many other things.
Well, I think it might work this time, Jeffrey, because you know they've said to Trump, you've got the veto over this deal. Now, this deal, handing the Chagoses to China's friend Mauritius, which, by the way, is 1,400 miles away, that threatens American security. It threatens British security. Of course. They're very strategic, those islands. There's an airstrip there on Diego Garcia that we all need to monitor the Middle East and the Far East. Very strategic. I think Trump's just going to turn around and say no.
I know. I mean, I can't understand the stupidity and ignorance and of that deal when, you know, pensioners and farmers are being screwed left, right and centre. One of your callers earlier talking about an old lady of 95 and just died because she was cold. I mean, it's absolutely awful, isn't it?
Yeah, and this is what worries Starmer, and it worries, rather Trump, and it worries me too. A guy called Richard Hermer, Lord Hermer, is our Attorney General. And he's the one who's been pushing for the Chagos deal. And basically, he's one of these guys who, if ever he sees a disputed debate, he always thinks Britain's in the wrong, that we're an imperialist country and all our colonies must be given away. Well, you know, the Chagos Islands are not part of our colonies. They're not part of our empire. And, they're just strategic. And Mauritius has never had sovereign control of them. So our mania to give them away seems to be born of this guy Hermer's old-fashioned anti-imperialist views. Give back the colonies every single time. Jeffrey, very good call. Thank you very much. Call me again. Let's quickly go to Mark in Birmingham. Hello, Mark.
Evening, Kev. How are you, mate?
I'm all right. What would you like to say?
I
I just wanted to say, mate, like you, I lived in America years ago. I lived in Detroit in the 90s. So I've got quite a few friends over there. To me, talk radio, you're like a satellite for Trump. Long may you continue.
Proud to be that as well, Mark. Proud to be it.
Everything that he said, I agreed with everything he said. It was honestly, it was like you was hit in the face with a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
He nailed everything wrong with his country, every single thing, bit by bit, and he's going to clear it up over there. And it's going to send a ripple around the world, and already is. And, you know, those lefties are going to be quaking because they know their policies are absolute garbage. All those blokes down Luton have lost their jobs working in the motor industry for what? An electric car that's going to conk out and need a diesel van to refuel it.
You're right. I mean, you know, the net zero just cost us all a lot of money. And when Trump announced that it was all over in America, you could almost see the champagne corks popping, or rather the old beer corks popping all over the States. And if only we could have that, Mark. But I'm afraid we are still in the grips of mad socialists who want to polish their halo at our expense. So that's the way we're going. But hopefully the Trump effect might release us from the darkness of all of this as well. But for the time being, we have to wait for a while. But America, they're free. They're free. We're still trapped, but they're free. Mark, great call. Thank you very much. Petri Helskin is in the studio. Hello, Petri.
Hello there, Kevin O'Sullivan. How are you doing?
I'm very, very well.
Jolly good.
Have you got inauguration fever?
Of course. We're going to be looking at... We're waiting, actually, to see which executive orders he signs first.
I think he's already signed a few.
Well, yeah, but there's going to be some more, aren't there, before the end of the day.
Troops are already amassing down at the Southport.
Yeah, I know. So that'll be interesting. So we're going to be looking at that. I've got Laurie Laird in the studio with me, who's an economist as well. So we're going to be looking at his promises to bring down inflation and if that is possible, alongside some of the other things that he's suggesting, which economists are saying are not possible. So it will be interesting to see all of that. So we're heading to the East Coast to get an opinion there on the inauguration, and to the West Coast as well to find out across the states what the attitude is, because there'll be just under half of the population who aren't thrilled that Donald Trump is in office. So we need to reflect that as well. That is called journalism. That's what we do.
Well, it's your sort of journalism.
Yeah.
No, I know a lot of people in America, right, who are, you know, dyed-in-the-wool Democrats, you know, liberal, metropolitan elite. And, you know, although they go, oh, it's terrible, but secretly...
There'll be some things.
Secretly, they're really pleased.